So I learned something fascinating in my sex ed studies. There is a surprising overlap between kink communities and neurodivergent folks, especially autistic people. Now, I know that may sound kind of random, but once you actually start looking at how kink spaces work and how autistic brains process the world, it actually makes a lot of sense. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to make this video is because before making YouTube videos about sex education, I actually worked with autistic children for about 15 years. So anything that I read related to the autistic community, I just have to share it. So before we get into anything, I just want to say hello. If you are new on my platform, my name is Ali. I am a sex education student with the Sexual Health Alliance. And on this channel, we have some casual conversations about sex, relationships, and other fun stuff. I also want to preface this video by saying that I am not exactly an experienced member of the kink community. I am still very new in learning about all of this stuff, as some of you, I am sure. A lot of my kinky experience is mostly in the bedroom. I've attended a few events and I've been reading a lot of books. So that is where most of my knowledge is coming from that I am sharing with you today. So please, during this video, if you have anything you want to add, please drop it down in the comments below. I would love to hear about your experiences. So let's set the stage here. When I am talking about kink spaces, I'm referring to communities that practice BDSM, fetish, or alternative relationship dynamics. And in terms of neurodivergence, I'm referring to people whose brains process things differently than the so-called norm. This includes autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and many more. Now, both kink and neurodivergence has a long history of stigma. So talking about where they overlap is not stereotyping, but about better understanding why certain environments can feel more affirming for neurodivergent folks. Now, a lot of these ideas I'm about to share with you are not my own. They are ideas and information that I have learned through school lectures from an educator named John Pendle, who is autistic and who is an educator and former international Mr. Leather, who spent the last 20 years teaching about kink, consent, and sexuality all over the world. So let's get into the many ways that these two overlap. And please, if you have anything to add, if you want to share your experiences, I would love to hear them. So drop it in the comments below. So number one, communication. This is probably one of the biggest overlap. Kink communities thrive off negotiation. We're talking safe words, boundaries, contracts, checklists. John Pendle, the lecturer that I was listening to in school, even said that at one kink event, somebody handed him an Excel spreadsheet which displayed their likes and their dislikes, and he was expected to read it and study it before they engaged in any kind of scene together. Pretty crazy, right? You probably wouldn't encounter that in a non-kink space. And research shows that autistic people really appreciate that clarity. A 2022 study published in Autism and Adulthood found that autistic participants described BDSM as comforting, reassuring, and hot, largely because they knew exactly what to expect and had all the tools they needed to control the experience. All right, let's move on to number two. We're talking about sensory environments. Now, when we look at vanilla nightlife spaces, so just clubs, bars, and so on, the music is blasting, the lights are flashing, people are yelling, there's a lot going on. It's pretty much a sensory overload. Now, kink spaces are set up a lot differently. Music is always low enough so you can hear a safe word and actually hear what people are expressing to themselves. Lighting is steady and not stroby, so you can actually see what you're doing, what other people are doing. People often talk very quietly or even work in silence during a scene. This makes for a much more calmer, more regulated sensory environment. As I mentioned before, I don't have too much experience. I've never been in a dungeon before. I've been in a few shibari inspired kink spaces, and yes, I agree, in those spaces, they definitely follow this kind of criteria. Speaking of spaces, if you're watching this video and you're like, hey, her content's cool, I like her, where can I see more of her and her content? You can check out my Patreon space. I will link it in the description below this video. But if you enjoy this content and you want to motivate me to continue learning about sex education, pleasure, relationships, and sharing that information with you, it's such a great way to support me. It's a great community I got on there. I got a lot of behind the scene footage of travel, sex stories, relationship stories, behind the scenes stuff. Just like there's like a big mishmash of things on there. A lot of vlogs too about my travels with my partner, sometimes some sexcapades. I share a lot more details of some stories that are on YouTube on my Patreon. So again, if you want to check it out, you can join for free, or if you want to contribute a little something to help me keep this channel running, you can do that as well. All right, on to number 3. We talkin' social rules and structure. Now, vanilla flirting can be confusing. What is banter anyways? What's too much? What's not enough? How do you teach it to someone? How do you know when someone is hitting on you or someone is giving you the green light? It often leaves people confused and expected to read other people's minds and know what they want, which honestly usually results in nothing happening or some problematic situations. Now, Kink Spaces have clear rules. They have outfits and roles that signals what people are into. Negotiations before you play means that expectations are already set. And sometimes you don't even need words. Just shared etiquette does all the talking. For neurodivergent folks who like structure, this is a major relief. Moving on to number 4, we got cleanliness and order. Vanilla sex can be really, really messy sometimes. And neat freaks sometimes get judged as having OCD. In kink, cleanliness is the norm. Everyone cleans up after themselves, and medical play requires a sterile environment. So if you're into that, you can't get much cleaner than that. Or if you have some like cleanliness kink or something, you know, domesticated tasks kink, clean house kink, anything like that. If you like order, kink culture is a great fit for you. All right, number 5, we got learning styles. So mainstream sex ed is basically just imitating porn. That's your demo. And we all know by now that porn is not exactly the best teacher out there. Can we agree on that? Now, kink offers multiple learning paths. You got podcasts, you got books, you got workshops, you got live demos with real participants in safe spaces. You can ask questions with no judgment. You can practice and get direct live feedback. So there are so many different ways that you can learn, which makes it a lot more accessible to neurodivergent folks. All right, this one's a little spicy. Number 6, we got sensory needs. So everyone regulates differently, all right? Some of us need repetition, some of us need deep pressure, and kink is all about playing with sensations. Pressure, texture, sound, impact, restraint. And for many autistic people, sensory input can be dialed up to the maximum. So what you maybe think is too much for one person to handle, for that person that's receiving that sensory input, it might not be enough. Another study done in 2022 notes that autistic people often seek out intense sensory experiences when they're under their control, of course. So for some, kink isn't necessarily a sexual experience, but deeply satisfying on a sensory level. So in kink, that could look like an hour of rhythmic flogging or an hour of gentle pressure and cuddling. So scenes can be customized to meet whatever sensory need that is required to make you feel good. Number 7, routine, structure, and observation. Autistic people often thrive with predictable routines and structures. So for example, in kink, scenes have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Negotiations set clear boundaries. You can even just watch first and decide later if you actually want to try that. Now, contrast that with vanilla sex, which seems to be a little bit more freeform and ambiguous. Number 8, we have community acceptance. So kink normalizes difference. They say your desires don't have to fit the mainstream script. So for neurodivergent people who may already feel like outsiders, that sense of belonging is a very, very big deal. In fact, participants in the 2022 study said that kink communities gave them the freedom to subvert neurotypical expectations and express themselves authentically. So that kind of acceptance is rare and very, very powerful. I wanted to read you a little quote that I read in this book that I'm reading called The Leather Couch Clinical Practice with Kinky Clients. So I think it's dedicated more to therapists. No, I am not a therapist. I don't intend on being a therapist, but it's still a very interesting read. And she was talking about inclusion in kink spaces, and I thought this was really nice. So I'm gonna read it to you guys. Beyond niche fetishes, the BDSM community is one that encourages inclusion of diverse body types and affirms the desirability of a range of shapes that often fall outside of the mainstream model of beauty. Corporality is an important exploratory element of BDSM. Some BDSM experiences place the body into central focus, as much of the experience is concentrated on eliciting various uncommon and unusual physical sensations. Fat bodies are worshipped, prosthetics and medical aids are fetishized, scars and markings honored. There is certainly an appreciation for the athletic or hourglass form, but within the kink community, there are opportunities for everybody to be desired, an experience that many of atypically attractive folks don't get to have in vanilla sex spaces. I find that's kind of beautiful, don't you think? Now, I'm not done this video yet, but if you made it this far and you're feeling like you can relate to what I'm sharing with you, please drop it in the comments below with like a little hands up. I'd love to hear how many people needed to hear this kind of information today. And know also that there is a sexy, kinky community out there waiting for you if you are looking to connect with people. All right, let's move on to the last overlap point that I have here, which is direct, literal language. Ariel Pliskin's 2022 paper, Autism, Sexuality, and BDSM, points out something really interesting. Autistic communication styles, clear, literal, straightforward, align beautifully with the BDSM norms. Ain't nobody got time for ambiguity, okay? Life is short. We don't want to keep guessing, so we can have fun. So what might be seen as too blunt in everyday dating is actually a strength in kink spaces. Here, directness isn't awkward, it's actually really respected. So let me give you a few examples. So in vanilla dating or sex, saying, "I want you to spank me," might be seen as too blunt and or just kill the vibe. Instead, people are expected to hint, to flirt, or hope that the partner picks up on the subtle cues. In kink spaces, being literal is the norm. So you must say, "I want you to spank me," but not harder than a 6 out of 10. And please avoid my lower back. Doesn't that sound sexy? It's like, oh, okay, I know exactly what you want me to do in order for you to feel pleasure. There's no guessing, there's no games, you just get straight to the point. So clear, straightforward requests are encouraged because they make everyone feel safe and happy. Another example is in vanilla flirting, telling someone straight up, "I don't like being touched on my neck," can come off as a little bit socially awkward. People often avoid naming dislikes directly because it can come off as a little unromantic or not willing or not game. In kink scenes, stating limits is beyond accepted and encouraged. So don't touch my neck. I like restraints, but not choking. Doesn't that sound nice? So being clear is the rule and not the expectation. So these examples show what could feel like socially awkward bluntness in everyday dating is actually valued, celebrated, and built into the etiquette of BDSM. Is your mind blown right now? I mean, all of this clicked for me because of my background. I worked for over 15 years with autistic children, and one of the most powerful things that I learned is that structure creates safety, and safety creates freedom. In classrooms, that meant that children can play more freely when they trusted the environment that they were in. In kink, it means adults can explore more when they know the rules and the boundaries. And you know what all of this actually reminds me of? A kink dungeon. Even though I've never actually been in one yet, from what I read and from what I've seen, in movies, on TV, and so on, it kind of reminds me of the equivalent of a snozzlin room. Now, if you're not familiar, snozzlin rooms are multi-sensory environments, often used with autistic children. They're carefully designed spaces with lights, textures, sounds, soft furnishings, all meant to give kids both structure and calm in a safe, regulated environment. So when you think about it, kink spaces and dungeons operate in a very similar way. They're curated environments where sensory experiences are intentional, boundaries are clear, and the goal is exploration within safety. So to me, it's fascinating that the same principles, structure, predictability, sensory richness, can create a sense of freedom whether you're a child that's learning how to play, or an adult exploring your sexuality. Now, why does this all matter? This overlap matters because it challenges stereotypes. Autistic people are often treated as infants or non-sexual, but the studies that I have shared with you today prove that they have rich and complex sexual lives. And kink spaces, which are already pushing against the norms, can sometimes be those places where that expression feels the most possible. And for sex education, the takeaway is simple. Everyone deserves spaces that honors their communication style, their sensory needs, and their boundaries. And neurodivergent folks can show us just how powerful those tools can be. And I know that I have a big group of neurodivergent folks that watch my content because a lot of you comment on my YouTube page. A lot of you have joined my Patreon, where you feel like it's a safe space to kind of just shoot the shit a little bit, you know, and talk casually about, you know, how you feel, your desires, your fantasies, and just share some interesting things about your life, even if it's not sexually related, in a more safe, non-judgmental space. Again, if you're interested in joining, I will link it down below in the description of this video. So, what do you think? If you are watching this video and you are a part of a kink community or you are neurodivergent, does any of this resonate with you? Please drop it in the comments below. I would love, love, love to hear what you think. I would love to hear about your experiences. I would love to hear if you agree or you disagree. Respectfully, please. So let's talk about it. And if you want full citations of some of the studies that I mentioned in this video, I will also drop them in the comments below so you can take a look at them and read them on your own time. I'll also link the book that I'm reading in case you're interested in learning more about kink community and kink culture. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Je vous aime.